Hey everyone, it's Mr. Hughes here, coming with your second episode of How to Write a Narrative. So, for me, the introduction always seemed to be the trickiest paragraph for me to write. And after a lot of repetition, I was able to figure out a method that works really well for me, thanks to my language arts teacher, my English teacher, and my history teacher. So, this is a culmination of all their influences on me. This works for me. I think you can take some parts of it if it's not exactly perfect for you and still incorporate into your writing style. So, in this lesson, I'm going to show you how I personally approach writing an introduction paragraph. So, there are three big takeaways for me to pay attention to when I'm personally thinking I'm ready to start writing my introduction. At this point, I have already brainstormed, so I have an outline of what I'm going to be writing about, but these three goals are always in the back of my mind. My first goal, I need to make sure that I'm grabbing the reader's attention in the very first sentence of my narrative. My hook has to stand out. If it doesn't, the odds of the reader wanting to continue reading my essay go way down. So I have to make sure it's engaging, attention grabbing, and sometimes I need it to be a little bit dramatic to get myself in the moment of that I'm going to be talking about. The second goal that I have is make sure my first paragraph of my personal narrative does not overstay its welcome. And what I mean by that, I don't want it to be lengthy for the sake of being lengthy. I want to set the scene. I want to talk about what the essay is going to be referring to for the most part, but I don't want to make it extensively long. If it's too long, my reader's going to get bored and want to move on to either another personal narrative or even another book. So I don't want to overstay my welcome. The last thing I want to make sure is that my thesis statement is clear. And at this point, the thesis statement is the most important part of my personal narrative. The reader should be able to know exactly what I'm going to be talking about and why I'm talking about it in my personal narrative after reading my thesis statement. It should be crystal clear what my intentions are, and I would be ready to move on to my body paragraph after I finished my thesis. So there are three main hook techniques that I personally use in my writing. The first one is describing the setting that my personal narrative is taking place in. The second is I'm using a memorable quote from either myself or that I remember someone speaking during that moment. Or maybe I'm making a quote that's said by another person outside of my moment and I'm making a connection to my personal narrative moment that I'm writing about. The third and final one, maybe I have a interesting fact about the subject matter that my moment is revolving around. For my example that I used earlier, maybe I have an interesting fact about canoeing, and I would tie that in for my hook. So here is my example of what an introduction paragraph would look like. This one, again, is continuing my canoeing personal narrative example. No, go the other way. One of the most frustrating concepts that I had to learn was learning how to work together with someone to steer a canoe. It appears to be so easy when you're watching someone else, but let me tell you, it's another thing to try it yourself. With some patience, I was able to learn how to be a good teammate and develop a stronger sense of patience. For this one, I made sure that I knew my reader would want to see a quote. Quotes, I think, are one of the easiest ways to get an engaging quote. So I took a quote from one of my boatmates that was in the canoe with me, and then I just continued to explain what I'm going to be talking about. I'm obviously going to be talking about the difficult learning process of learning how to steer a canoe. And then I talk about what it's going to teach me in the end within my thesis statement. So I hope these tips are helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing what you create. Thank you for your time and look forward to the next episode where I'm going to go through a body paragraph with you.